All right, this is part of video two. So the first thing I thought I would do is remove this from the shipped unit and replace it with my red one that you saw many videos ago. And the first thing that struck me was the lack of wires. So if you look at what Jack has done, Unique Parts, in terms of routing wires and making changes. So this wire for the digital counter now runs through the tube underneath, and then again through the tube to the back of the case feeder. Whereas on this particular unit, I'm like, oh, I've got this USB thing, and then I've got all my wires that are wrapped around that go to the back, or that did go to the back. Where's the bottom of the wire? So this wire that is coiled was to the back of this unit. So kind of looks like a little hard to do this one-handed, standing behind the camera. So this was around like that, and I used my inline fab as a wire catch. And then I had ordered the plate because silly me assumed that the light, the LED light that is a nice to have, but I don't know how functional it is. I rarely used it, but I used the shell plate holder as my cable for my USB Lite. And because I didn't order it, I was like, wow, there's so few wires. Where's my USB cable? Well, the reason there's no USB cable is because there's no light, there's no LED light installed in here. So there's a difference. I mean, it's a very clean look, extremely clean. Not that this is a bad look, it's just, I would call this evolution. And something I did notice that is not in this version of the digital counter. So if you look at what this is a clamp. That the only thing this clamp can do, and obviously over time it'll slide down because there's no lock on the clamp. So one of the reasons I moved my shell holder up was to hold the digital counter up. And a comment that I made was, wow, it'd be nice if you could tilt the digital counter, because when you're looking at it straight, if you're higher than the digital counter, it's not as visible. Well, now Jack has a tilt functionality built in. Not only a tilt functionality, but a locking clamp. So you can put this wherever you want. Obviously, if the wire reaches, you may have to splice if you want longer. But now that is adjustable at both an angle and a lock. So technically, I don't have a reason for this shell plate holder, because I won't have this cable. And I'll probably leave it off for now. So I can move this around, up, down, and then obviously tilt. And I did check it to make sure it works. So we are golden. All right, I thought I would show you as I come across design changes, enhancements, or whatever the right phrase is. As I tinker, I'll bring those up. Okie dokie, good evening, YouTubers, fellow reloaders, and non-old school computer fans. I thought I would throw this video in since I will be leveraging this mobile stand, and I would highlight, obviously, the blue bin dam blocker, whatever we want to call this, so that when I'm done reloading and I can pour that in and such. And then the other Unique Parts part, which is slightly blocked because normally I would put this case feeder on afterwards, but I installed the powder type insert so that I would know exactly what I'm loading when I'm loading. So I thought I'd take a minute and show that off, and I will put this back together and put this press out of the way, and I will mount the Dylan on here and go through what I've done with the Unique Parts case feeder Lite platform / system. All pretty good stuff. And we are back. I got to tell you, I'm a little lethargic. Dinner was absolutely delicious and filling. It was a giant veggie bowl with some beef in it, and it was good stuff. All right, so this is what the finished product looks like with the unique parts system completely installed, all the goodies that I would want. And I'll get up close on some of the stuff as well, and you can see it's no higher than, well, it looks tall just because it's on the standing press, and I have a 5-inch mount on the bottom of the press, so it's about 5 or 6 inches taller than it would be. Again, it's for standing, a comfortable stand for reloading. And I put some cardboard in the background to hopefully give a distinct way of actually viewing all the components so it doesn't get washed out with the grayness of the garage door or the evening light still trying to poke through. So I will start at the top in terms of review. In fact, I'll move the camera a little bit closer so I can actually touch things because I'm about 3 feet away from the press right now. So give me a second to reposition. All right, that's a little bit better. I will start at the top and kind of work my way down a little bit and try and point things out where it makes sense. And I'll start with something that I was not confused, but wasn't quite sure about last night. And as you can see, there's the insert for the case, the specific case. In this case, the insert is 44 caliber. So that would sit in there, and this tube that last night I was like, well, is this an extra tube for right here? And you can't see where I'm pointing. Is this an extra tube for right here in case that gets damaged or whatever? But this is actually a single, let me get rid of my bullet feeding tube. This particular tube is a single tube version of the multi-tube. So if you didn't do a whole lot in your reloading session and say you just wanted maybe 50 at a time or whatever the magic number of cases are, or just wanted to load a handful and didn't feel like loading up the tubes, this is a single tube as opposed to the multi-tube. So a very simplistic, kind of like a single stage reloading press versus progressive. So I would call this progressive tubes, and I would call this single tube. So that's what that was. Get that out of the way. All right, let me go back up to the top and start with the case feeding tray. This went on to these 4 tubes like hot butter through a knife. It just slipped on. It's a snug fit. It's not that it's loose or anything, but it's very, very easy to get on. Whereas on the prototype, this was a little harder. I was strong arming this particular version into these 4 tubes. So the production version went on with without issue whatsoever, and you can see it, but I'll probably rotate the press a little bit. You can see the recipe card, and I talked about this yesterday. There's 6 sides, 2-sided, so you can have 12 of your most favored recipes. But because I load just 45 ACP on this press, I will be more than satisfied with just having my single recipe in this insert, this 73 millimeter by 38 millimeter insert. So I will print my recipe for the main 2 powders I use, WST and W31/H38, or is it H34? Can't remember. But in any case, those are my primary powders for 45 ACP. So me personally probably wouldn't take advantage of the card but somebody who uses the press for multiple calibers, I could see that being beneficial. Excuse me, so you don't have to pull out your recipe book all the time. And then, of course, if you are changing calibers, there was the shell plate adapter holder that I actually did install, and I'll show you why I installed it when we get to it. This light bar, and I'll turn the lights off here in a second, well, I put on. I don't know how I'll like it or not, because right now I'm also running an inline fab Lite in the tool head. So I was using and am using, and it's a little hard to get behind it right now because naturally the camera's in the way, so hang on one sec. I found that anytime one wants to demonstrate something on camera, the camera's always going to be in the fucking way and be the most difficult thing to get around. As is the case with trying to untangle this USB cable / wire. In any case, I'm using the shell plate holder as an adapter to hold wires. Kind of what I was doing with the other version as well. And I just wanted to flip this on. Let me turn off the lights here in the garage. Make it a little bit darker so that you can get an idea of how much this actually lights up the press area. So I will turn it off. There is no light, and there is light. And I will do that again so that you get an idea of how much light, and you can see a little bit of light from outside up in the left corner here. I'll just block that out. But the light bar is pretty cool, I must say. I was, for what the light bar is, in terms of how much space it takes up and how much it lights up, you know, so much of the press area, as opposed to just the tool head light, which would light up just your shell plate. So I would say that the LED that was in the previous version of the case feeder is, I don't want to say unnecessary. I think this is a brighter solution than that light was. So this sheds a whole lot of light on your work areas. And again, same thing on the left side, excuse me, the right side and the left side. They're both quite illuminated from the two LEDs. Oh, there's dinner coming back. All right, back to let there be light. All right, so we've talked about the recipe wheel. We've talked about, can't see what I'm pointing to. We've talked about the recipe wheel. We've talked about the tray. I ordered, I bought a second, I'm calling this either a brace or an arm. And here's the other one. And that was a bit of a change from the previous model in the sense that the original prototype only had the single arm, this brace, which is right here. So when you look at the original / prototype for the multi-tube feeder, the biggest difference is where these two sections are, because on the first one, the prototype, it was very close to the bottom. And I'm sorry, but I'm hitting things here if I get too close. And what Jack noticed is with the bar and the brace, I was struggling to rotate the multi-tube feeder. So by separating them a little bit more, and I can't do it very effectively because I'm standing behind the camera. It's still a two-handed job, but it's an easier two-handed job. The second brace, so you've got your first brace, and then I've got my second brace, and because of those braces, I now have a taller steel tube. So previously, the steel tube was right about here. So I've basically about doubled it, maybe a little bit more. And what that has allowed me to do, in my case, for my needs, is I can position this shell holder wherever I want to hold the wires, additional wires. Or I can route this wire through the center of the tube, should I choose to, if I keep this light bar here. But the longer steel pole, steel tube, allows me, and I can put additional devices like the light bar and the recipe card, allows me to, the big win for me was installing this second arm or brace. So this pole is rock solid. I mean, I'm moving the whole press stand right now. Now, before, this was pretty solid compared to the previous version I had, the 1.0 and the 3.0, 4.0 version of this. This is pretty solid by itself with just that single brace or bar. But adding this second one in and positioning them both differently so that they don't, both give at the same place. This, I'm moving the whole press. Moving the whole press with the bar. Moving the whole press with this system. So this extra bar / brace, for me, just meant a whole lot more stability. And I like that. That was a win. Some of the differences that I've already talked about in comparison. This was just nicely finished. You didn't really know, there was no off switch. The off switch was the cotter pin that you would stick in the middle that would hold a piece of brass from falling, or keep a piece of brass from falling. Now you've got an indicator telling you whether you're on or off. And the only time you're on, meaning both you're dropping brass, is when you have both arrows. So anything in between is essentially an off button. And then we've eliminated the need for the cotter pin. So I would call that, that's a win. That's plus. Let me come down a little bit. You've seen the bin and the bin dam. I like to keep an extra handful of brass and lead in here, because inadvertently something will happen. I'll run out of brass. I'll have a bad piece of brass. A bullet will drop on the floor. I'll be out of bullets because I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, a million things will happen. And this just allows me to have something right next to the press. And this is an inline fab dual bin mount. And what was nice, so I can scoot around the camera again, is, let me pull these off so you can see this, is the way Jack has this mounted, measured. This doesn't hit any piece of the 3D printed filament, and it folds in quite nicely when I need to put it away and put my cover on it. So that worked out quite nicely. And as I've already shown, the wires for the digital counter are now inside the pole, and I'll turn this around in the back and you can see what the back looks like. So you saw my digital counter where I replaced the shipping digital counter, what I call the white version, with the one I dyed red. And speaking of dyeing red, let me see, do I have this here? Yes. So my 145 ACP that was gray, I attempted to do dye red, and you can see it's more like a bronze or a brown. So gray and red dye make a very attractive bronze. but bronze is not my color. So back in the other case it goes. But in any case, what was nice and different, I talked about it a little bit previously. The original digital counter was just a clamp. And as you can see, the slightest touch, it drops. So you would have to do something, use another device to put this to the level that you wanted to view it at. And you could only view it straight. So if it's down here and you're looking here, you got to kind of squat to see it because it's LCD and not LED. So in order to get that nice viewing angle, you don't. So what Unique Parts and Jack did was they made a clamp very similar to other components. And he's got a screw / nut bolt swivel, so you can tighten and loosen this, but you can twist the clamp to wherever you want, lock it in place at height and angle, and then you can twist the digital counter to the viewing level that makes the most comfort for you. So I thought that was a win. All right, heading down some more. Again, this is the one without an LED light in it. So when I turn it around, you won't see wires, but you should still see my digital counter work just as it's supposed to. Very smooth. Everything's so smooth. Just amazing attention to detail. And again, speaking of attention to detail, the shipping versions of the case pusher, or at least what I call the case pusher, I showed you last night. This one has a thatched pattern on it, or a hashed pattern, whichever you prefer. This one had Unique Parts information on there, as well as the thatching on the stem and the base. This just had it on the base. Oh, there's dinner again, excuse me. Ooh, yeah. Wait till it wants to exit the other places. And it kind of is similar to the thatching that's up here a little bit, but I decided, for two reasons, to keep this case pusher, the original case pusher, on the press instead of replacing it with the new one, for two reasons. One, this is adjusted perfectly, and I have not had a single issue for probably a couple thousand rounds. And two, I actually like the lines on here, the design. I have nothing against the thatching, but the lines on here, again, this is more anal retentiveness, the lines on here kind of coincide with the lines on here, and you got some, symmetrical lines here. There's Unique Parts logo, or at least identification. You've got horizontal lines here. You've got some horizontal lines here. You've got them in here. You've got them up here. So I was just comfortable leaving this particular case pusher on the press. So, and I've already talked about this insert, my 44 insert that I wish said 45 ACP. So I'll probably reach out to Jack and purchase if shipping wasn't so much, it wouldn't be as big an issue, but it is. So I might have to wait until I do a bulk purchase, which is kind of the approach I took here. Since shipping is a bit of change, I took the bulk purchase approach of buying a bunch of stuff all at once. Kind of like the primer and powder approach. Minor things, I changed out all the lock rings on my press to match. I had some older RCBS. Are they split thread? No, they're not split thread, but they have a whatchamacallit, a hex head through them to lock onto the threads. Not something that is my favorite, but I'm not taking these out and putting them in a lot. All right, so the rear of the press, and let me get this out of the way a little bit. Very clean. Not that it matters what the rear of your press looks like, but again, because this is the non-LED light version and I have the light bar up top, I don't have to have a conundrum of wires. And as I said, I was using the shell holder as a method for reining in the wire that I'm right now trying to rein in for the light bar. So again, I haven't figured out what I want to do in this space, but you know, as I just did, the shell plate holder serves as a nice way of keeping things organized. But the back of the case feeder just looks extremely clean. And again, to a lot of people, that won't make a bit of difference. But I think that points, you know, when you look at the attention to detail on how things are crafted, how they're put together, when you look at the stainless steel hardware, the attention to detail in all aspects, you know, even down to the number of bolts and nuts to lock this into place. I mean, this is some solid stuff. And I recall when I first got my version 1.0 of this back in 2018, and I broke it because the mount was just, you know, it wasn't there yet. And working with the designer, he improved that greatly. And again, I've been using that ever since I found the unique parts solution. But again, finding the unique parts solution to me just is making a world of difference, because I personally believe this right now is the most extensible, expandable case feeding system. Again, I call it a platform/system because of so much of what you can do with how it's constructed and what you can add on, especially for those who are into the mechanical aspects. You know, you could say, oh, an ammo plant gives you the same thing with the case feeder and the bullet feeder. Yeah, it does. And it's all electronic. And if that floats your boat, that floats your boat. And the beautiful thing about reloading is everybody gets to do it their own way. And there's no such thing as wrong. There's just different. And that's okay. All right, let me look at my list. I had actually typed up a list of things I wanted to cover. I talked about the case feeding tray is easier to mount to the 4 tubes. The multi-tube feeder is easier to turn and rotate because of the location of where you would grab now, as opposed to other components getting in the way. I talked about the arrows for locking, no more cotter pin, as well as moving this brace up and then adding a second brace. The case feeder option, it eliminates wiring because of this light, not having a light down here, eliminates a whole lot of the wiring mess. And again, this wire, should I keep this, can be easily routed through this tube so that everything passes through and is even less of a not a hassle, just less to contend with. I talked about the pusher cosmetic designs, the wiring and holes for it throughout the tube, as opposed to just hanging off the back of the devices like the digital counter. The tilt and rotate for the digital counter, plus the locking clamp, as opposed to just a C-clamp that twists around and doesn't have any way to lock in place in terms of height or rotation. Let's see. But then I did put together a wish list. And so, Jack, if you're listening, this is a wish list of nitpicky stuff. And the reason they're nitpicky is because the platform and solution, the whole system is just so rich. And there's just not a whole lot of room for improvement when something has been executed so well. So these are little nitpicky things. And let me start at the top. So, as I've said, I will probably not use this because I don't reload enough calibers on my AP. But I like the idea of a cap. So just having, you know, a small cap to put right up top here, that would be great. And let's see if I can show this. Because the press is higher right now on the mobile stand, it's about that much higher. we'll call that 7 inches higher. You don't notice it, but let me, I don't know if I can, let me go off camera for a second and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Hang on one second. I'm not sure why I always say let me go off camera. I mean off tripod. So again, that's my lack of tea talking. But as you can see, when this is lower, you can see the wires. Let me go around the other side. And that's not a bad thing. You know, it's just, and it's nicely done. But when it's eye level, those become more noticeable. And it looks like there's the ability, because of how this is shaped, to add or to create a 3D printed cap, like a little round cap with a channel that follows the top, so it looks a little more, I'll use the term finished instead of exposed. So I would think that would be really easy to do, speaking from someone who's never printed anything in 3D in my life. So I'm going out on a limb, but I would think it would be easy to fashion a cap with a channel that allows you to just snap onto or slip on or set on these two arms, so it looks just a little more finished. And again, let me go around to the other side. Adding a cap, a little red cap, red of course, for the tube, for those who don't have a recipe card up there. All right, back on tripod. All right, while we're still up top, the whole wiring. So should somebody choose not to route this wiring through the steel pole, maybe the idea of having like some mini clamps so that you could snap the wiring along the back of the pole. Some, you know, a real, in fact, it would probably great to have the clamp like the original, you know, a mini version of this. So it just clamps on, but then again, maybe locking it on is better. So maybe a version of this with the back that has, you know, a cutout or the ability to squeeze a wire in there so that you could do some wire management is what I'll call it. So I'm a stickler for trying to make things neat, and that, again, that's back to my OCD, which I wish I didn't have, but I do, so it is what it is. I'll leave that at wire management. And then I thought about how folks, because somebody has already asked me, they're like, hey, can I order your exact system? And I'm like, I don't see why not, because these are all standard parts from Unique Parts. The only thing I'd be careful of is, you know, hey, I want to buy what Reloader bought. Just be careful, because I bought extra things and a specific pole size to my needs. So my order may not, you know, be the right thing for you. The case feeding system is all universal, but whether you go with the single case option or a multi-feed case option, or a short pole, whoops, always hitting the camera, a short pole or a tall pole, what I thought was, you know, if it'd be easy to say, you know, maybe the pole on this one is, you know, called a short pole, and the pole on this solution is called the medium pole. And then if you look on their website or on eBay, the pole that goes all the way up to the top, way past here, and the light bar goes much, much higher, and then you would never see these tracks. That's the tall pole, and maybe some measurements with each one. So when people go to order, they could say, oh, I need the, you know, 500 millimeter pole. Oh, I need the 800, 900 millimeter pole, or I need the 1500 millimeter pole. And I'm just throwing raw numbers out there that I have no idea what they actually translate to, because I don't have my conversion calculator in front of me for the metric system. And then I will say, I do believe that this extra clamp up here, a second one of this, adds a tremendous amount of rigidity, to the point where it's like night and day to my original system. Not like night and day, and I'm dropping everything. Not like night and day to this. This was rock solid. I never had issues with this. I just thought, well, since I'm buying it, let me make it as robust as possible and order the extra clamp or brace, or whatever the right term is for that part. And I think that is about it for the comparison of old new, or rather prototype and shipping version, prototype and production, as well as how I've mounted it to my press. I don't run this system on my mobile press. I actually run the Dillon on my mobile press stand. So this will go back on the bench. And I love the whole recipe reminder, because that just takes, there's no more guessing to what was I doing or remembering or whatever. It's right there in front of you. And to be able to just pop that out and pop in different recipes as you change is pretty cool. So I can simply state that this is the best platform system I have had for the Hornady lock and load as it relates to case feeding, digital counting, multi-tube case feeding, a lighting system that lights my whole area for the press without having to worry about the lighting in the garage, and then just being rock solid. So this thing absolutely rocks. I know there'll be people that'll be like, yeah, whatever. But until you actually try this, feel it, you know, when you look at the construction, and I've said this before, the attention to detail all throughout everything is just simply phenomenal for 3D printing. This has to be some of the most robust industrial 3D printing devices that I've had, and I've had more than a few of them for my reloading case feeders, because I kept trying things until I found what I liked, and then I would still try more because there was always something out there. And what Unique Parts has done to this particular platform is just simply beyond what anyone else is doing out there right now. And I'm a fan, no question about it. It looks beautiful. It operates flawlessly. It is smooth beyond belief, and it just works. I mean, it's simplicity and attention to detail at its best. It is, again, can't say enough. So I'm done babbling about my love for this this hardware. It's money well spent, without question. Absolutely, I fully believe that. So that's it for tonight. Take care, folks.